Hello and welcome to Overtime Hockey Talk. My name is Mark Paul, and my co-host Justin Baker joins me in studio.
Thank you.
As per like literally every episode.
I don't remember last time we actually Skyped.
We haven't Skyped in a while. We haven't needed to. So it's a good thing. It's a great thing.
Yeah, I miss your face, so, you know.
Who doesn't? I miss your musk. So yes, on today's show, we are going to be going through the top 20 defensemen. So get your popcorn ready.
Yeah, whammy. Let's go.
Here is the top 20 defensemen in the NHL. And we've done wingers, we've done centers, and we've done goalies. So this is the last one in this iteration. And if you want to check out those episodes, just subscribe to the show. Go back, look for those titles: goalies, centers, and wingers. It should be pretty recent, and you can check those out. But let us begin with the players that just missed our list.
Yeah, the just miss was very difficult for me.
List is hard.
It really was, yeah. But I found like once I got towards the bottom of it, like that 14 through 20, literally any one of those guys you probably could have just thrown in a blender and then picked one and tossed them up. But for my just miss, though, I got Zach Werenski, a guy who is, continually playing well. Granted, he does get to play a lot of minutes with Seth Jones, which is probably why I left him off this list, because most of the other guys, whatever pairing they're on, they drive it, right? They're like the guy on their team, whereas he really isn't. I mean, let's be honest.
He benefits from Seth Jones.
He does, yeah. So kind of hard to put him on here. And another guy, this guy I struggled the most with, and that was PK Subban.
Okay.
Yeah,
this is your list all together.
Yeah, he is the only guy that didn't hit my list that actually has a Norris Trophy, which made it very difficult to keep him off. So
Chara's not on your list, I don't think.
That's true. Actually, yeah, you're correct about that. Chara's not.
But a relatively recent Norris Trophy.
Right. Yeah, and then I have also got Charlie McAvoy, Chara's partner there, and Keith Yandel on my just missed.
Yeah, some of those guys also missed my list, along with Ryan Ellis and
really.
Ryan Suter missed my list.
Okay.
Yes.
Suter, not surprised. I mean, let's be honest, his game isn't what it used to be.
He just plays a lot.
He plays a lot, yeah. But Ellis, I'm really surprised. He to me is, he's been playing so well lately, and last year was just fantastic for him. So,
yeah, he's my 22.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, but
so it's not like he's bad or anything. I just don't know.
I get it. And
speaking of some of these guys,
yes.
and he benefits from the rest of the defense core that he has around him, and the fact that he sometimes doesn't have to take the hardest responsibility.
That's fair. Yeah. Well, speaking of your just missed, my number 20, let's kick it off. Ryan Suter.
Okay.
Comes in at number 20 for me.
Well, and mine is PK Subban, so a guy who just missed your list. So there's the blender. I'm just not, I'm not ready to take PK Subban off this list. I know that he hasn't exactly lit the world on fire going to New Jersey even here. And I think probably Nashville sold high as they were going to sell. He may fall off this list, but I also think that he's a guy that I can definitely see bouncing back and moving himself higher up this list.
Sure, that's fair. And no secret, Ryan Suter plays 28 minutes a night.
But he's 35 now?
Yeah.
Is he 35?
And he still produces too, which is, a lot of people don't realize he's still consistently putting up 40 points every year. So you're still getting the production, although, he is on a team now that is at the basement, which doesn't look good regardless.
Yeah, I wonder when you start talking about moving him.
Yeah, he'd be a lot easier to move than a guy like Zach Parise, because a lot of teams are, could always use a top pairing guy or even a guy in their number 2 line. So.
My number 19 is a guy who I don't know if he has a Norris. Does Shea Weber have a Norris?
He's got a Norris. He's got one.
He does, yeah. So he's my number 19. So I got 2 Norris Trophy winners, 20 and 19.
Okay.
Again, another guy that could be higher. It's just there's so much to play with, and he hasn't been able to stay healthy also, and that maybe kind of plays a little bit of a factor. Me knowing that some of the guys above him on this list are going to play all the time, and with Weber seems to get these weird little injuries here and there. So, my number 19. But he definitely drives the entire Montreal Canadiens team.
Yeah, he does, and he's my number 19 as well. 11 points already through 16 games, and it's looking pretty good for him. Again, granted, if he can stay healthy, because the last 2 seasons, 58 and 26 games, so. that's been his MO in Montreal. He had one healthy season, and then he's just been riddled with injury.
Yeah. Give me a full season this year that's productive, and he probably moves up this list. Because he is very impactful when he plays. Yeah,
a few years ago, he probably would have been top 10 for me.
Yeah,
but
easy.
The injuries, they don't help much.
All right, my number 17 is Mr. Dougie Hamilton.
Dougie Hamilton. Or you just skipped 18.
I'm sorry. My number 18 is Dougie Hamilton.
Okay.
Sorry. Yes.
No.
I did skip 18. I forgot.
Numbers is hard.
My number 18 is Dougie Hamilton.
Okay. Comes in at 17 for me.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And who's your 17?
Hamilton's my 17. My number 18 is OEL, Mr. Ekman Larson.
Okay. Yeah. So we just have them flipped.
Okay. Fair.
Oliver Ekman Larson. I think he's so underrated playing down in Arizona that we probably don't appreciate him as much as we could.
That's true. And there's a lot of guys on the West Coast where, unless they're like the marquee names, you really don't get an opportunity to really see how good these guys are.
Right. And I'm just, there hasn't been much reason to seek out watching Coyotes games.
No.
Even when they're like last year when they were winning games, they still weren't it wasn't a blast to watch them win 1-0.
Yeah, that's the thing. In the new NHL where people are scoring goals and they're like 1-2 a game.
There's a lot of other options out there.
Yeah, Darcy Kemper too. He was on a hot streak. Recently just got broken where he was letting in 2 goals or less every single game, and that's how Arizona was winning games, and finally letting 3. So streak broken.
What can you do? So I thought about, all right, I've got a guy like Ryan Ellis, and why is he not ahead of maybe a Dougie Hamilton? And again, I just think the way that he's able to benefit from playing with such high level defensemen, I do think that Dougie Hamilton is probably he's the best guy on that back end in there in Carolina. So to me, he's the guy who's driving so much that Ellis drops a little bit because of that, and a guy like Suter, I'm just trying to figure out like why some of these guys you might think they need to be higher. But what's their situation? Like, why did they produce? Like Suter, he plays a lot. He's also for a bad team.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and for me, Dougie Hamilton, I guess maybe why he's not, a little higher on this list for me. Granted, he's kind of having a coming out season this year in Carolina. I mean, last year he was kind of hidden behind the shadows. You didn't really notice him too much, and I think because we didn't hear his name a lot, which
is probably a good thing for Dougie Hamilton.
Yeah, probably.
Didn't need to hear his name for a minute.
But like you look at the last couple seasons in Calgary and coming over to Carolina, his production has dropped every year for the last 3 seasons. So, hopefully this is the year where he's finally turning it around. And I mean, for me, that was one big reason why I had a hard time putting him a little bit higher.
Yeah, that's fair. Who's your 16?
Number 16. I just literally minimized my list when I'm trying to pull it up. That was embarrassing. Torrey Krug, for me, comes in at number 16. I should have these memorized.
Torrey Krug is a little bit higher on my list. I have Thomas Chabot at number 16.
Okay, guy who missed my list entirely.
Yes, I'm very surprised.
Yeah, surprised. The one season was great. He looked good in his first season and a half with the team.
He looked great.
Yeah, he did look great.
I'm willing to say he looks great.
But I kind of look at it like a situation with like McDavid, right? The last few seasons after the deadline where you're like, okay, we're out of the playoffs. Who gives a frick? We're just going to go out and play balls out. Who cares about defense anymore? And you end up putting a lot of points. And I think that's kind of a little bit the case with a guy like Chabot.
He's a good defensive
player. He is, absolutely.
He can defend.
But he's on a team where he's the guy expected to produce, right? They don't have forwards up now. I mean, now they got Brady Tkachuk who's showing up, but last season they really didn't have anybody who was looked at to produce for him. So he was the guy who had to drive offense, and I think now I'd like to see him where he has other players around him who are producing, and how can he still manage to play his game. So maybe give it another season and he cracks my top 20 here.
Yeah, his zone entries are always so. His percentage of just being able to carry the puck over the blue line instead of having to dump it in, I think is a huge measuring stick showing how talented he is. So let's go because you said
16 is Krug.
16 was Krug. Who's your 15 and 14.
All right. 15 for me is Ryan Ellis, and number 14 is Mr. Klingberg.
Okay, so I've got Klingberg at 15, Dahlin at 14.
Okay.
And then I have Torrey Krug at 13.
Okay, well, at 13, I got Rasmus Dahlin, so.
Okay, yeah. Torrey Krug might be the most underrated defenseman in the entire NHL.
Yeah, he's been consistent the last 3 seasons, 50, 50, 50. I mean, he's just putting up monster points. He's a small guy, too, which is even more surprising. But, I mean, he's a power play specialist, right? That's where he gets a bulk of his production. But
he's also very, he can shut guys down.
Yeah,
because
he's
of
scrappy.
his ability to move the puck as well and play in the corners. I really like him. I think he's a free agent at the end of this year, and we'll see if Boston can get him locked up.
Can afford him, and he's a local boy here in Michigan, Livonia born.
Hey, maybe Detroit can sneak him.
Hey, Yzerman. I mean, he's making some moves. Let's talk about Fabry. 2 goals in his first game with the team. That's for Jacob De La Rose. So I had to get it in somewhere. I'm sorry.
To slip it in. Yeah, I mean, I think Torrey Krug's probably, you're looking at a guy who will probably get maybe $9 million in the open market.
I mean,
if a team wants to be able to pull him.
I think with his production, I mean, right now you're looking at 13 points through 16 games, and it's easy for a team that is starved with production on the back end to say, hey, let's go out and spend some Carlson money on this guy and be easy to do.
I mean, yeah, I'd pay $9 million for Krug.
The big question would be term, of course, but 3-4 years, I have no problem giving him.
28, isn't he?
Yeah, he's 28. So 3-4 years, I have no problem giving him $9 million this season.
Okay, so who's your 15, 14, 13?
Yeah, so Ryan Ellis, Klingberg, and Dahlin at 13 for me. So
okay, yeah, so Dahlin's just a little bit higher.
Yeah, a little bit higher. I mean, I like everything that Rasmus Dahlin does. He's effective at both ends, and he's helping drive that back end for a team that was relying on Ristolainen for so long, and now they actually have a guy who can play at both ends so responsibly and well.
And he's only getting better.
And that's the thing.
He's not getting better.
He does. And he's doing it quietly, too, because they've got superstars in front of him with Eichel and Skinner. And you kind of overlook the fact that you got this other superstar in the back end. And, on the flip side, John Klingberg, just a spot below him at 14 for me. He is starting to get overshadowed by another guy a little higher up on the list for me.
Yes.
But he's still productive. He's still a great defenseman. He's a little bit... he's off to a little bit of a slow start this year, but
the Stars
in general were off to a slow start, so I have no doubt he's going to get his game back together for sure.
Okay, so our number 12, both of us have Chris Letang.
We do.
At 12. I have seen Justin's list, so I know we both have Letang.
One of the few times you've seen my list prior.
Yes, it's true. Now, he's a guy who I feel like I want to have him lower, but I also... I just couldn't drop him any further than he is right now.
Yeah, the injury bug wants me to, put him further down this list. Kind of like, when we talk about Shea Weber, right? A guy who hasn't been healthy. But when Chris Letang's in the lineup, he drives play and he produces. And he's still responsible at his own end. I mean, you look at the last few seasons, right? Last year, 56 points in 65 games. The year before that, 51 points. In a couple seasons prior, 67. So he lights it up when he's healthy. But that's the problem. If he's healthy,
that's the problem. Yeah, could probably be higher if he's able to stay healthy. And we'll see what happens. This season and beyond, in the next few seasons. I still think he's still a guy I don't mind having on my team.
No, not at all.
I do wonder. It's really his game is his ability to skate. And his high level of speed, and I wonder if his speed, if he begins to slow down over time, what that's going to do to his game. Like, can he still be effective?
Right.
So, okay, so you're number 11.
Number 11 is Mark Giordano for me.
Okay, so Giordano is considerably higher for me on my list.
Okay.
Won the Norris Trophy last year, 75 points.
74, yes.
74 points. My 11 is Miro Heiskanen.
Okay, he's a bit higher for me. Okay. He comes in at number 10 for me.
Okay.
So yeah, Mark Giordano. I had trouble putting him a little bit higher, and I know you have him considerably higher. But last year, 74 points, great, well-deserved Norris. But prior to that, we had a 39-point season, completely healthy, full seasons. So it makes me wonder. And then prior to that, too, yes, he had good production with 50, 48, 47 points. So he was still producing. But, I'm wondering if last year was just a fluke, right?
Maybe the points were his points were certainly elevated beyond what he would normally reach.
Although 12 through 19 games so far, so the production is still there.
Yes.
But, is it going to come back down to earth? Or
I see, and for me, it's having him higher. So I have him at 6.
Okay, much higher.
But he's that much higher because he's so much more than a guy who's putting up points.
That's fair.
He's an incredible leader. On top of that, he is such a good defenseman. Like the guy, you could, in his own zone, the side of the ice that he's playing on, it's gone. Like you're not doing anything against Mark Giordano. Great positioning. He can work in the corners. Like the guy can do everything. I think he kind of came into himself a little bit later in his career, so he didn't get a lot of the fanfare when he was a younger guy.
Right.
And maybe that's some of it, but to me, I really like Mark Giordano.
He came into those Calgary days, though, where they didn't have anything.
Right.
Ginla had left, and this franchise was heading down the tubes, so, sorry. But anyways, so my next guy up, you're number 11, my number 10, Miro Heiskanen. This is a guy who, to me, I think I put him so high on this list because of where I think he's going and what I think he's going to be. Much like Rasmus Dahlin, I think he's only poised to be better. And, come in a couple years, I think he's probably going to, eventually crack my top 5, and he'll probably be a Norris Trophy winner.
Yep, I think so too.
Yeah, he quietly goes about his business, probably might be the best skating defenseman in the NHL to me. And I can't remember who it was exactly, but he kind of compared Heiskanen to being the next Nick Lindstrom, where Lindstrom came into the league, wasn't touted as, being the superstar, but quietly went about his business and flew under the radar and eventually just
make a mistake.
No, that's the thing.
I have him at 11, but certainly, one more year here and he's probably climbing into the top 8. So I have him at 11 and Alex Pietrangelo at 10.
Okay. Pietrangelo is a little higher up my list, but...
Pietrangelo is an interesting one because you could have him lower on here and I wouldn't have a problem. You can have him higher on here. I wouldn't have a problem. I mean, he does so many things well, but at the same time, he's not super flashy. He's not putting up massive numbers. He scored Stanley Cup winning goal last year.
That's true. He did.
Played well in the playoffs. But
oh my gosh, he did play well.
He's kind of a guy that you just don't like. If you say, hey, who are like some of the best defensemen in the league? His name's probably not coming up.
It's tough because again, he's not flashy. He's not that that Erik Karlsson, Brent Burns point producer. But he to me is like a Mark Giordano, where he's just quietly a leader. He plays so well at both ends, but yet he still produces well enough.
Yeah, I used to have a fantasy hockey team, and I had drafted Pietrangelo late, and I named them. I think it was like the pot pie Trangelo or the chicken pot pie Trangelos or something, and his face was in the chicken pot pie.
Oh my goodness,
that's awesome. Okay, so who's your number 10?
Yeah, so my number 10 was Miro Heiskanen.
Okay.
My number 9, moving on, Drew Doughty.
Okay, so let's go your 9, 8, 7.
Okay, 9 is Drew Doughty, 8 is Morgan Riley, and 7 is Alex Pietrangelo.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have Morgan Riley at 9, Drew Doughty at 8, and Brent Burns at 7.
Okay. Brent Burns at 7.
Yes. Doughty's an interesting one because I think there's some people that would look at last year and go, he's out of the top 10. Like,
right. They're cooling on him quick.
But I'm not ready to take Doughty out of there. I mean,
no, not at all.
So long. I mean, the guy is just touted as he's a top 3 defenseman, and he may not be there anymore, but it's not necessarily that he's gotten worse, it's just that the team around him's gotten worse, and so it's hard to measure how good he really is still.
Yeah, and that's exactly the case. I think, his production is still there. He still plays the game with enough grit and tenacity that just makes me love him still. I mean, frick, his rivalry with Matthew Tkachuk is fantastic.
So
that hip check, just great. How many guys you see still throwing hip checks? So, that hip check alone might have bumped him up a spot for me. So.
There you go.
Yeah, so love his game. I don't think he's slipping much. Like you said, I think it's just the team around him that's slipping a little bit too hard. So when you got to play with slow players like Dustin Brown and Kovalchuk, I mean, you can only move the puck so far up the ice because they're not even past the red line yet. So
the Leafs played them and they were like asleep the whole time, and they still won't beat them 3-1.
That's just ridiculous. Yeah, and speaking of Leafs, Morgan Rielly for me at number 8. I love everything this guy does. Probably one of the most underrated defensemen in terms of just, you never talk about this guy because everybody, the star power in front of him, right? I mean, he was, and like a lot of people will make the argument that he might be lower on this list because, he gets to play with Tavares and Matthews, but I look at his time before those guys came in, he was still producing.
He was still good, yeah.
He was still good. And so what has changed for him? Nothing. He's still that same great player. I think his defensive side of the game is only getting better, which is great.
He's never really played with anyone.
No.
Of significance. Like, he's always had to do it himself. I mean, he was playing with, with
Ron Hainsey?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah, he gets to play with, Ceci most of the year this year?
Yeah, now he has to play with Cody Ceci, so it's
not much better. Yeah, and then at 7, Alex Pietrangelo for me. I mean, this guy, there's not too many defensemen on this list that have won a Stanley Cup, and he's one of them, and he showed up, produced, and he quietly does it. He's a leader in that locker room, and so it'll be interesting to see if they can get him locked up. They went out and signed, Justin Falk so quickly after that trade, and, they got, Parenko locked up to a big contract. So, Pietrangelo is one of those guys that could probably easily get $9 million on the open market. So, he might just take a walk and go see what's up.
So I have Brent Burns, like I said, at 7. Sounds like maybe you have him higher.
Yeah, comes in at 6 for me.
Comes in at 6.
Yeah.
Okay. I see, and then that's where I have Giordano at 6. So
okay,
Giordano much higher. You've got Burns a little bit higher. I've got Pietrangelo lower. Burns is a guy for me. I'm just wondering, like, this might be his last year in the top 10. It's possible that at the end of this year we look and we go, okay, he's no longer an elite defenseman, or he's still elite, but he's kind of fallen. Other guys are pushing past him. Like, how much longer until Dahlin and Heiskanen and Shabbat, and like, how much longer are those guys behind Brent Burns?
Yeah,
unless Brent Burns is putting up mad points, which he's
still doing. I mean, he's 16
doing,
points already through 17 games, and prior to this season, it's been 5 straight seasons of 60+ points.
Yeah, he's putting up big points. I also wonder, like, I look at the Sharks, and you look at how they're doing as a whole.
They're a mess.
Does him maybe putting up a big points mean less? I don't know. He just doesn't seem like defensively. Like, he's terrible defensively.
He is, absolutely. And Drew Doughty, pointed it out. He's just,
right.
But we know that story.
It's hard to keep a guy so high when your responsibility is to defend and you're not good at it.
Yeah, so. And I've seen a lot of lists where, they put Brent Burns as high as number 2 on some of these lists. And
that's incredible.
Yeah, and I can't do it because when you look at his abilities defensively, it's like he's just not adequate when you compare him to the other guys ahead of him on our list, and right. They're just so much better at it. Grant, yes, the production offensively is there and it's great, but he's 34. He's going to start slowing down eventually. He's no Nick Lindstrom or Scott Niedermayer, guys that can still produce offensively. I don't think he's going to be anyways. And like you said, Sharks are a mess right now, so yeah, we'll see.
Okay, so let's move into the top
5. Yeah.
All right, let's go number 5.
Number 5 for me is Seth Jones.
Okay, Seth Jones, I have him higher. I actually thought about putting Seth Jones. He could be number 1.
Yeah,
just what he can do. He's my number 3, though.
Okay, yeah, he is. Gosh, this guy's got maybe one of the higher ceilings of most of the guys in the top 5 right now. I think he has the ability to be. Obviously a Norris Trophy guy. He's going to get it. I think it's only a matter of time. Last year 46 points, year before that 57. So he does this all with a team that doesn't produce a lot of offense in front of him, and he's so good on his own end. I mean, that's just why I have to put him in the top 5 regardless. He
literally can do everything.
Yes.
Like he's just if you were like, all right, I'm gonna make a robot defenseman, it would probably be Seth Jones. Like he can just do everything so well, and he gets better every single year. So I have him at number 3. My number 5 is John Carlson.
John Carlson. Okay, he comes in at number 4 for me.
Yeah. So I mean, I actually struggled putting him in the top 5. Defensively, I still don't think that he's that great. He just puts up such big numbers. Like he produces offensively, and he can transition the puck so well. He just is kind of a guy that like you can't ignore.
No,
and it's almost like people have been trying to ignore him. Like they don't like. There's some parts of his game that that could be improved, or they're never going to get better. And he's just made up for it in being able to dish the puck. He can shoot the puck. Like he is an offensive juggernaut in terms of as a defenseman. He just isn't great defensively.
I think he's fine defensively, but I think the one knock on him, a lot of people will look at the fact that he gets a bulk of his offensive production on the power play. I mean, last year he had 36 points on the power play, which was freaking fantastic. He's already up to 10 this season through 17 games. And, when you get to play with guys like Backstrom and Ovi, it's easy to dish the puck. But, it definitely helps. But, I mean, he's still got to show up. He's still got to, put the puck right in the wheelhouse for these guys. He still has to transition, and he does all those things very well. And I still think he's fine on his own back, and I don't have a problem with him. And I think he's kind of underrated a little bit in that aspect. But, and like you said, he's just kind of flown under the radar for so long.
Yeah. And really, you think about who he's played with. It's not like he's playing with world beaters either.
No. I mean, he played with Niskanen and Karl Alsner. I mean, he didn't have a lot of guys that, like again, and he was always expected to be a top pairing guy for this team too, after the departure of Mike Green. So, and he's done quite well.
Yep. Okay. So my number 4, I'm going to guess is higher on your list. I have Roman Josi at number 4.
Yeah. Josi comes in at number 2 for me.
Okay. So with Josi, again, like just don't really like his defensive game. Like he just.
I love it.
I'm not a big fan of
Okay.
his ability to play actual defense. He's just so good at moving the puck. Like as long as he can get the puck in the defensive zone, he's going to make a great play.
Well, yes, absolutely.
The problem is sometimes being in the right place. I think he's at times struggled with that. I think that there's some evidence to show that he's just really not that great like when the other team has the puck in his own zone. He's not a top 5 defenseman in terms of getting the puck when you don't have it. But when he has the puck, when the team has the puck, he probably is the best defenseman on this list.
Okay. Interesting.
So that's my, he drops a little bit because he can't do everything. Like when I think of Seth Jones, there's a guy who can do everything. And he may not have the like the skating ability of Roman Josi, who he may be. You said Heiskanen might be the best skating defenseman in the NHL. Josi,
he's up there.
Was the best before Heiskanen was ever anything. So he's phenomenal. I dropped him a little bit because he can't do everything.
Okay. See, the thing I love about a guy like Josi is, you have a team in front of him where a lot of teams, they have the forwards that drive the play. Obviously the defensemen have to transition and move the puck up to them. But, when it gets to the forwards, that's where the plays actually start. Whereas like in Nashville, it's just the opposite, right? The play starts at the back end, and these guys really drive these forwards and how they, transition forward. So, and so when you've had, guys like PK Subban, Josi, Ellis, and Matthias Ekholm, who have been doing it so well for so long.
Spoiled.
Yeah. And prior to that, they had Shea Weber and Ryan Suter. They had just a richness of defensemen back there. And he's quietly went about it, being the best on his team at it, at both ends for me. And, when you look at the production that he's given this team and the leadership ability he has. I think for me, he's one of the better.
Yeah, probably should have a Norris.
Probably should. Yeah, but I mean, some of the guys on this list have it's the Norris has turned into who can put up the most points and be okay defensively, which just drives me nuts. But that's a discussion for another show.
Should just have an Art Ross trophy for defensemen.
There you go.
And then actually do a Norris.
Yeah.
So who's your number 3?
So number 3 for me is Erik Karlsson.
Okay.
And again, this is another guy like, Jonathan Klingberg we talked about, off to a slow start. Signs that massive $11 million deal in San Jose, and he's going to be there till he's pretty much dead, which...
Not wrong.
No, yeah. I mean, let's face it. When this guy's healthy and on his game, he can be one of the best. Like, there's few defensemen that can literally just control the game, right?
Absolutely, like 100% controls everything.
Yeah, and everything goes through him. And I think now, when he was with Ottawa, right, he was relied upon to be the guy, and now he's not so much that anymore in San Jose, right?
Maybe they need him to be more.
Well, that's the thing, yeah. You see where they are now, and I think now that more than ever, you need that old Erik Karlsson who takes over games and just can take the puck from net to net. I mean, go 200 feet with it and be unstoppable. So
yeah. I have Erik Karlsson at number 2. So Seth Jones 3, Karlsson at 2. There's nothing that he can't do. He doesn't have to play often in his own zone where he's chasing the puck because he usually has the puck. So
right,
he can do everything. Makes that first pass beautifully, but can also skate it out and make things happen. Maybe not the way he did when he was 23, but he sees some guys. They've got this, like his skating was unbelievable. I mean, before he hurt his Achilles, he was so fast. And he's still very fast, but he's just not that, maybe lacks that little edge. He's a guy who one area of his game, maybe due to age, has deteriorated a little bit, but he's improved in other areas of his game.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So, I mean, he's just a guy who he's going to keep getting and keep staying very good because I think like a Nick Lidstrom, Nick Lidstrom didn't always put up big points, but he always found a way to get it done.
Right.
And I think that's going to be Karlsson. Karlsson's just always going to find a way to be good.
Yeah, and I think it's funny. You look over the last 15, 20 years, right? There weren't many guys on the back end who can produce at a point per game pace, right? Nick Lindstrom was one of those.
Yep.
But Karlsson and another guy on his team, Brett Burns, have been the couple others that have. But the difference with Karlsson, I think his IQ in his own end defensively is so good that I even if the production does slow down a little bit, if his skating deteriorates because of that injury, maybe if he can't move up as quick anymore, he's still so smart. You don't have to really worry about him.
He knows where to be. Well, I think that leaves us with one guy. And I think we have the same guy at number 1.
I think so. Who came in at number 2 on NHL's top 20 list?
Drunken fools.
You know who was ahead of him? Brett freaking Burns. No. They put number 1 on their top 20. The writers at NHL.com. Get out of here. You're done. You're dead to me.
Victor Hedman, number 1.
Should be.
Top
Rightful.
defenseman in the league. And we all saw what happened to Tampa Bay when he couldn't play.
Dude, he's a beast.
The best team in the league when he doesn't play isn't the best team anymore.
Right.
He's that crucial to this team. I think Stamkos could miss time. Tampa's still the best team in the league, but he misses time.
Right. They have other cogs they can move around, right, to fill in when guys like Stamkos or Pointer out. But when you miss a guy of that importance to a team, it's, McDonough can go in and maybe, patch that hole a little bit, but he's not going to be that guy. He's not going to be able to fill in the way he does it. No. And I mean, this guy, Hedman, is just, he's going to get, some more Norris trophies. I think he's just going to have, another 1 or 2 to put on his mantle, I think, when it's all said and done.
Yep, I think so. Maybe not this year, but.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 10 points through 12 games is great, but yeah, he's been injured a little bit this season, which will hurt his case. I think when you got guys like John Carlson freaking just lighting up the lamp.
Yeah, Carlson's, it's his trophy to lose this year.
Right now, yeah. My goodness. Yeah, and then, well, I don't know, the love affair everybody's having with David Pastrnak, they might just consider him a defenseman too and just give him a Norris and a freaking Art Ross at this point. But
he gets every trophy.
Yeah, Victor Hedman though, man, he's such a big guy, and for a guy of his size, he can skate so well, which is just even more freaking amazing. And I mean, 54 points last year, 63, 72. I mean, he's going to continue to produce.
Yep.
So, and it doesn't hurt to be on the Lightning either, to have that bevy of talent in front of you either.
Not at all.
So,
yep. But well, that's our top 20 defensemen. Let us know what you thought at OT Hockey Talk, and as we move forward here, this series wrapping up, but we'll. Of course, we love our lists. We'll find more lists to.
We'll have more
to throw together, and you can look for the top 10 Winnipeg Jets that we'll have coming out, and then we also, who knows what we'll do next. I'm sure we'll talk about like just the actual season happening.
There is hockey playing. Yes,
we can do that too. We like to talk about hockey. So all right, well that's our show. Enjoy whatever it is that you're doing today, and enjoy the games tonight.